What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be talking about the Begg Knives Steelcraft series Mini Bodega. Now, for those of you who don't know, the Beggs, it used to be a single company, but I believe that Todd Begg is now his own company, and his knives are called Todd Begg Knives. And the Begg Knives is a separate company, and this is part of that other company. It's still a Todd Begg design, which remained with this company, but Todd Begg is no longer associated with this company that has the design of the Mini Bodega. So they create a custom version of the knives, and then they create these Steelcraft version. Hopefully you can see here Steelcraft. And what that is the production side of Begg Knives, and that's handled by Riyadh Knives. So let me give you a tour of the knife, because man, this is there's a lot going on here. So what you have here is a harpoon spear point type blade. This one is in two-tone. You've got a hand rub satin flat with a black DLC coated primary blade, and the coating is also on this fuller and on the swedge. You can see it on both sides. The fuller has these I don't know if it's blood grooves or speed holes milled through it, and they're alternating size from small to large and small to large, so they're not the same. You've got some fairly aggressive jimping over here in the back, and we'll talk about that a little bit. You've got a titanium handle that's been blue anodized, but it's been milled to have this beautiful checkered pattern in this swooping arc right here, and that looks really nice. You got a nice contoured or milled backspacer that has this really nice small checkering that gives a little bit of traction, but it's not aggressive. You got much more aggressive in the pommel back here in the back. On the other side, you also have a little bit of the milled checkering. You have kind of the same kind of blood groove that matches the blade here, okay? And then you have this milled titanium pocket clip that is in this kind of cracked ice type of finish. Hopefully that's coming across. Let me see if I can, yeah, there you go. Like a cracked ice type of finish. Now that cracked ice is also transferred on this backspacer. You can't really see it because of the checkering, but if you see in here, let me see if I can get it just right. You see the inside is also black ice. Now another detail that you can see is in the pivot, around the pivot, this area. It's been milled to follow this contour of this kind of triangle. Hopefully that comes across correctly. So there's a lot of design elements to this. Now, so let's get into the review of the knife, and let me give you first some size comparisons. Here it is against your bug out, Benchmade bug out, and here it is against the Mini bug out. So what we have here is a knife that in size is very similar to the Benchmade bug out. It's approximately the same length. It has kind of the same proportions. This one's a little bit thicker, but some of that thickness is really on the pocket clip side. They match much better in thickness when you lay them on this side. And let me show you why. So the pocket clip, it's a little bit weird because the titanium is milled to have these two kind of I don't know, protrusions coming up from here. You can see two protrusions coming up, and the pocket clip goes on top of that protrusion. So the titanium is milled up to here, to this side right here, and that's where the pocket clip is milled. It's kind of a detail. It's kind of a weird type of detail, but it's pretty nice. But it makes the knife, when you're sitting on its side, it makes it look taller than it actually is. Oh, before I forget, it's got a lock bar insert. This knife has got a lock bar insert that also serves as an over travel stop, so you can't go too far. And you have a ceramic ball for your pocket clip here at the tip. Now let's continue with the size comparisons. Here it is against your Para 3 and your Para 2. So the Mini Bodega is a little bit smaller than the Para 3. If I put one on top of the other, you can see the size difference. This is matching the rear of the knife, so the Para 3 is a little bit longer. Now there is a full-size Bodega that is closer to the size of the Para 2, but what's weird is that a lot of the elements remain the same, but you don't get some of the milling around the pivot. You don't get the cracked ice on the pocket clip, and that's kind of a bummer, because I think there's many more details in the Mini, but I think for my hands the full-size Bodega will probably be a better version. See, the blade on this one is coming out right at 3 inches, a little bit under 3 inches, if you can tell. So it's not a big knife. So let's jump into the ergonomics of the knife. And the ergonomics are very good, with one fatal flaw. Okay, it's nicely contoured. Okay, there's contouring in this direction. The grip is really nice. There's no hot spot in the pocket clip. Your finger kind of lands in this dip in the scale right here. It lands right there, and then it barely kind of touches the jimping, but you can try and choke up a little bit here. It's not comfortable, or it's not easy. It's not a big finger choil over here in this location. But the fatal flaw comes, the access to the lock bar is amazing. It's really, really good, but it extends so far that way, and the jimping is so aggressive. It's kind of like what they've done here in the back. It's consistent, it matches, but when you grip it, your finger lands. So I'm gonna try and squeeze it hard here, and then I'm gonna show you. You see the mark right here? So that's really uncomfortable. The teeth dig into your hand. So I think the jimping should be on the interior, but not really on the surface of this. It's really easy to disengage, but it affects the ergonomics significantly. Overall, decent ergonomics, except you will feel that it's a tremendous hot spot. It's very uncomfortable in that position right there. Now, action is what you can expect from Riyadh. It deploys super nice. Now, it's not as drop shot as some other Riyadhs that I've done, that I've seen. It takes significant effort to get it to drop. Maybe that's because it's a smaller blade and it's only a 3-inch blade and it's not very heavy. So deploying it, the D10 is awesome. It deploys really nicely, really crisply, but closing it is it doesn't drop. It takes a lot of coaxing if you want to kind of shake it closed. So for deployment is excellent. It fires reliably. Even if you try and fail it, it's very hard to do. It just fires. But on closing, it's not as smooth and as no, it's smooth, but it's just not drop shut. It's not free falling. Now for cutting, it's actually a fairly good cutter. Let me show you the blade thickness here. So I'm gonna show you what's the best way to do it. Yeah, there. Okay, so a little bit thinner than the Para 2 and the Para 3. Okay, so it's a little bit thinner. The grind, it's a flat grind from here to here. So it comes to a not hugely thin edge, but reasonable. And because it's not a very thick blade stock, cutting through things is not difficult. This because it's more kind of elegant and it's more bougie, you know. I use it more when it's not quite a gentleman's carry, but you know, if I'm going out for a party or something like that, where I want something nicer, not necessarily like a formal event, but a party, this is what'll be. So this is what I use, and I don't have a lot of hard use for it. But it's a decent cutter, and you've got a fairly robust tip, because the flat, you know, you see the line, it kind of carries all the way to about right there. So the point is it's actually not that dainty. So cutting, it's a decent cutter. Not as slicey as what you get from the Paras, or not as slicey as what you get from the bug outs. The blade on the bug outs is just ridiculously thin in comparison. You can see. What's the best way? Yeah, there you go. Now, let's get into fit and finish. So fit and finish is amazing. I mean, the amount of detail that goes into doing this, right? From the satin flats that kind of carry all the way through, from the coated blade, all of the precise milling that goes into doing this checkering, the cracked ice back spacer with the cracked ice pocket clip, the ceramic ball, you know, the milling, this fuller, and then this kind of faux fuller that you got in the back, you know, the polished back screws of the lock bar insert, the fit and finish, and the amount of work and detail that goes into this, the milling for the pocket clip that is rounded, it's tremendous. It's you know, Riyadh does really good work, but in this one, the amount of extra stuff that they've had to do, you know, like if you see a Chavez, one of the 229s, it has a really nice blade, that really nice grind, but the handle is a fairly plain affair, right? It's just a slab of titanium. This has a lot more going on. The little mill marks that you got around the pivot, the checkering, all of these things, the amount of work that goes into the Mini Bodega is just outstanding, and it's incredibly well done. You know, the blade is obviously perfectly centered, and it fires really well. Again, the action closing, maybe the lock bar tension is a little strong, and maybe that's why it doesn't drop. But as far as fit and finish goes, this is amongst the best made Riyadh knives that I've ever seen, that I've ever handled, and I've had this one for a while. So yeah, the finishing is really good. So finally, airing of grievances. Again, I think I would like to see the full-size bodega with all of the details that the Mini Bodega has. There's some things that are just not there. The milling around the pivot, the cracked ice back spacer, all of that is not there in the full-size Bodega. And before I forget, even though it's a Mini, I still get very close to a 4-finger grip with my large hands, okay? Before I forget. But that leads me to the ergonomic. They really need to do something about this jimping right here. It falls right. I mean, even a light touch leaves you a mark because it's so pronounced. They need to do a much shallower jimping, or no jimping here, and then just do the kind of the divot here to access the bar. This is it's usually a pet peeve of mine, to be able to access the lock bar, but this one went overboard to where it's uncomfortable to hold in the primary hold position. It just lands exactly where you're gonna put all of where you're pinching your thumb against here to grip the knife. That's exactly where the jimping is happening in your finger, and it's just very painful here. So that's gonna do it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, and if you think I deserve it, then like and subscribe. Don't get notifications. Nobody wants to be told what to do. If you want to see my videos, you know where to find me. And until I see you at the next one, take care.